Welcome to Verge File.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. She stood at the door with a weekend bag and eyes that didn't flinch. "I just need time," she said, "to figure things out." But I already had. And I knew the moment she left, she wouldn't be the one deciding how this ended. Let me be clear, I didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't chase. Because when someone announces they're trying out another man, it's not a test. It's a verdict. And it was my turn to sentence the silence. 3 days earlier, I found the texts. Not hidden, not protected, as if she wanted me to see. The way she spoke to him, laughing, planning, comparing. "Mark never looks at me like that anymore. Maybe with you, I'll finally feel alive." Alive? We had built everything together. A home, a life. And now she was chasing a spark like a teenager bored of comfort. But I didn't confront her then. I watched. Every move. Every whisper of a lie she wrapped around our routine. She smiled more at her phone than at me. Stayed late, at yoga. Stopped asking about my day, because her mind had already moved on. So when she finally came home that Thursday night and said, "Can we talk?" I already knew where this was going. She said she wasn't leaving permanently, just staying at a friend's place for a week. To think. She said it like she was offering me something generous. Time. But all I heard was this: "I'm gambling you'll still be here when I come back." So I nodded, helped her carry her bag to the car. Didn't ask who the friend was. Didn't ask when she'd be back. Because I'd already started packing her things in my head. And this trial separation? That was her mistake. She thought I'd wait. She thought I'd shrink. But I was already planning the moment she'd return to a man she no longer recognized. The kind who doesn't shout, doesn't plead, doesn't forgive betrayal disguised as confusion. She walked out with uncertainty. But I stayed with clarity. And while she was off, testing her feelings, I was about to test what life felt like without lies. And trust me, that test? I passed it the moment I watched her taillights disappear into the night. The silence after she left wasn't empty, it was clean. She had only been gone a few hours, but the air in the house had already changed. Lighter, sharper, like peace had been hiding under her perfume and fake smiles, just waiting to breathe. I didn't sit around wondering what she was doing. I knew. She was with him. The man she called just a friend 6 months ago. The one she swore had a girlfriend. The one she suddenly started mentioning less and texting more. While she was playing house with someone else for a week, I didn't fall apart. I got methodical. Step 1. I cleared the house. Not in rage. With precision. Her things went into boxes. Every photo of us. Removed from the frames. Every shared memory. Archived in a hard drive I never planned to open again. The bedroom? Clean sheets. Fresh pillows. No trace of her scent. The bathroom? Her products in a bag by the trash. I didn't throw them out. I wanted her to know I packed them, like I'd already decided she wasn't coming back. Step 2. I called the bank. Revoked her access to the shared credit card. Not because I was petty, because she left as a trial, so I moved like it was a split. No shared money for a woman sharing her body with someone else. Step 3. I reached out to my lawyer. Started the paperwork quietly. Not a declaration. A transition. She wanted a test? Fine. But I was done studying for a relationship only I was trying to pass. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the sunset without tension. No phone buzzing. No fake excuses. No pretending. Just a man who finally saw the storm for what it was and stepped out of it dry. The next morning, she texted, "Hope you're okay. Just checking in." I didn't respond. Because I wasn't a pit stop for her guilt. I was a man rebuilding his dignity, one silent step at a time. She thought I'd be waiting by the window. Instead, I was locking the door from the inside. And the truth? She hadn't left for clarity. She left for permission. But she gave it to the wrong man. By the second day, she started calling. Not often, just enough to ease her conscience. Each missed call said the same thing. "I thought you'd fight for me." But I didn't. Because I'd stopped fighting the moment I realized I wasn't the one swinging first. You don't try to salvage a house already burned from the inside out. I went to work like usual. But I was different now. Colleagues noticed. My assistant, Jamie, looked up and said, "You look lighter." Funny how freedom feels like weight loss. No yelling. No silent treatment. No emotional withdrawal dressed up as, "I'm just tired." On my lunch break, I stopped by a realtor's office. Asked about listings. Told her I was thinking about a clean reset. She smiled like she'd heard it before, probably from men like me, mid-battle but too proud to say divorce out loud. But I wasn't unsure. This wasn't grief. This was strategy. Later that night, I boxed up the last of her jewelry and left the box on the counter. Not hidden, not dramatic. Just there, like an exhibit in a museum called What Was. Day 3 came, and with it, another text. Can we talk soon? I feel like something shifted. Something had. Me. She thought absence would make my heart ache. Instead, it made my mind sharpen. I remembered the years I spent carrying emotional weight while she flirted with detachment. How often I apologized just to keep the peace. How many times I heard, "You're just too serious," after I asked her why she stayed out late. Now she was someone else's puzzle. Someone else's illusion to maintain. By day 4, she called 6 times. I let them ring. Let her feel what it was like to talk to a wall, because that's what I spoke to for the last year of our marriage. She wasn't confused. She was calculating. And this trial separation, it wasn't about answers. It was about access. To both men. To both lives. To options. But I wasn't an option. Not anymore. I wasn't waiting for her to come back. I was building a world where she never existed in the first place. On the 4th morning, I deleted her contact. Not to punish her, just to finalize a decision I'd already made silently. There was no grand gesture. No social media post. No angry playlist in the background. Just a man drinking black coffee while printing divorce papers. People think the loudest moves are the strongest. They're wrong. It's the quiet ones that shake foundations. She still hadn't returned. Still figuring herself out. But I already knew who I was without her. Focused. Sharp. Untethered. I cleaned out our closet. Everything of hers now boxed, labeled, and stored in the garage with a sticky note that read, "Pick up by Friday." The sticky note wasn't for her. It was for me. To remind myself that even closure has a deadline. Around noon, I got a message from her sister, Melissa. She wrote, "Is everything okay between you two? She's acting weird." Weird. Translation. Restless. Unsettled. Afraid she pushed the wrong man too far. Melissa didn't know about the trial separation. Of course she didn't. Because women like my wife don't share those details until they know how the story ends. Until they're sure they're not the villain. I didn't reply. Instead, I went out. Grabbed drinks with a buddy I hadn't seen in 2 years. We laughed about old times, talked about real estate, cigars, and what freedom smells like after a long winter of silence. He asked, "So, are you okay?" I said, "Better than okay. I'm finally out of the fog." Because that's what she was, fog. Pretty from afar, but dense, shapeless, and easy to get lost in. On the drive home, I realized something chilling. I hadn't thought about her once during the last 3 hours. Not what she was doing. Not who she was with. Not what excuse she'd make. And that's when I knew. This wasn't a phase. This was transformation. She was still out there, pretending to test the marriage. But I wasn't her subject anymore. She thought she pressed pause. In reality, I hit delete. She left trying to taste freedom. I gave her the whole meal, served cold. Day 5. I came home from the gym and saw her car in the driveway. She wasn't supposed to be back until Sunday. But there it was, parked like nothing had happened. Like she never left. Like she didn't blow a hole through the middle of our marriage and call it space. I didn't flinch. Didn't slam the door or demand an explanation. Just walked in, past the foyer, past the guilt in her eyes. She stood in the kitchen holding the box of her jewelry I'd left out days ago. One hand on the counter. One foot already tapping. She started to speak. I raised my hand. Slow, calm, final. She went silent. Good. I didn't need an apology wrapped in tears. Didn't need her to dress betrayal in uncertainty. She made her choice the minute she stepped into another man's apartment with a suitcase and a script. I poured myself a glass of water. She tried again, voice soft. I didn't expect this. I nodded. Exactly. She expected weakness. A man pacing the floors. A voicemail inbox full of apologies. Maybe even flowers at her temporary doorstep. Instead, she came back to a man who had already emotionally packed up and left without slamming a single door. I walked her to the garage, opened the storage cabinet, and pointed to the neatly packed boxes with her name on them. She stared at them like they were tombstones. Then she whispered, "Is this really happening?" I said nothing. Because when a woman asks that question, she already knows the answer. She just wants a softer version of it. But I wasn't soft anymore. She walked back inside slow. Like gravity, just doubled. I followed, grabbed the divorce papers from the drawer, and placed them on the dining table, next to a pen. No speech, no shouting, just the sound of chairs settling into silence. She didn't sign them right away. Of course not. Control doesn't like to admit it lost. But for the first time, she wasn't leading the dance. She was standing alone in a room she no longer belonged to, surrounded by walls that stopped recognizing her scent. I turned off the lights as I walked out, left her there in the dark, wondering when the man she once knew had learned how to disappear without moving. The next morning, I woke up in silence and liked it. The house, once filled with the noise of her movements, her voice, her endless scrolling through social media, now felt like mine again. There was a strange peace in hearing nothing but my own breathing. I didn't check my phone, didn't wonder what she was thinking, didn't replay the past, because the version of me that used to chase clarity didn't exist anymore. That morning, I went to the bank and removed her name from our joint accounts. The manager asked if I was sure. I was more than sure. I was surgical. Next, I called the dealership. The second car was in my name. I scheduled a pickup for the weekend. She'd have a few more days with it, enough time to realize comfort was a luxury she forfeited. By noon, I met with a realtor. Told her I wanted a clean sale. No drama. No drawn-out listings. Just gone. Every move I made was quiet, deliberate, exact. There was no revenge in it. Just precision. And then came the unexpected twist. Maria. She was an old college friend. We hadn't spoken in years. She messaged out of nowhere, said she was in town, wanted to catch up. Normally, I would have hesitated. But that version of me, the man who waited for permission to live, was already buried. We met for coffee that evening. What struck me wasn't her looks, though she hadn't changed much. It was the way she looked at me like I mattered, like my words held weight. She asked about work, about hobbies, about books I'd been reading. She didn't ask what I did wrong. She didn't try to psychoanalyze the wreckage. She just listened and laughed. That night, I didn't think about my wife. Didn't wonder where she was sleeping or who she was texting. I thought about how good it felt to be seen again. Not managed. Not tolerated. Seen. Back home, the lights were on. She was still there, pacing, waiting. She tried to speak again, but I didn't stop walking. Just grabbed a hoodie, my keys, and left. No explanations. Because when someone tests your love by abandoning it, they don't deserve a front row seat to your healing. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept like a man who chose himself. She waited until the 7th day to finally try explaining. I came home late, intentionally. Dinner was cold on the counter, untouched. She was sitting at the table like a statue made of guilt. No tears, no dramatics, just a trembling voice. I made a mistake, she said. I stayed standing, not to dominate, just to make it clear. She no longer had a seat at the same level. She tried to make it sound accidental. Said she got lost, was confused, never planned for it to go that far. Words carefully arranged to avoid responsibility. But here's the truth. Confusion doesn't pack a suitcase. Confusion doesn't book a hotel room 2 cities away. Confusion doesn't sleep beside another man while your husband's toothbrush still dries beside yours. I didn't interrupt, didn't flinch. She kept waiting for the old me to surface. The man who'd ask questions, crave closure. He was gone. When she realized I wasn't going to rescue her from her own confession, her tone shifted. She said, "You're being cold." I almost laughed. Because the same woman who vanished for a week, who tested our marriage like it was some science experiment, was now accusing me of being distant. That's the thing about manipulators. They can dish out silence, but can't handle echoes. She finally asked, "Can we fix this?" I met her eyes and said the first full sentence I'd spoken all week. "I'm not interested in rewinding pain." She blinked, stunned, like I'd spoken a language she never bothered to learn. She thought I was waiting for her. She thought this was her return scene, where the camera pans in and the music swells and the man takes her back. But there was no music, just silence, and a man who'd learned that not every story needs a second chapter. I walked upstairs and closed the bedroom door, not to shut her out, but to protect what was left of my peace. She didn't follow. She sat downstairs in a house that no longer answered her voice. I fell asleep to the sound of nothing, and that nothing was beautiful. By the 8th day, something in her cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just fractured. I noticed it in the way she hovered near the door when I put on my shoes. The way her voice trailed when she said good morning, as if testing the air, wondering if I'd echo it back. I didn't, because by then, I wasn't angry. I was indifferent. And that's what scared her most. Anger still holds a pulse, still fights to reclaim something. But indifference? It's a quiet funeral. No guests, no eulogies, just a closed casket and a lock. She followed me into the kitchen and asked, "Where are you going?" I said, "Out." That one word, flat as stone, hit harder than any speech. She wanted signs I still cared, even if it was in the form of jealousy, confrontation, emotion. But all she got was stillness. That evening, I took a walk through our old neighborhood, past the cafe where we used to spend Sundays, the bookstore she never liked but I always loved, the park where I once imagined us raising kids. Funny thing is, none of it hurt anymore. Because when someone burns the blueprint, the dream stops matching. Back home, I found her sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket like it was armor, staring into nothing. She asked if we could talk. I told her talking was what we used to do before she started lying. No anger, no sarcasm, just fact. That silence stretched so long it bent the air. Then she asked the real question, what she'd been circling for days. Is there someone else? I didn't answer right away, not because I was hiding anything, but because the question itself revealed how little she knew me. It wasn't about someone else. It was about being someone else. I wasn't chasing another woman. I was chasing the man I used to be, before her betrayal made me a ghost in my own home. I finally said, "There's someone new, yeah?" "Me." She looked confused. Of course she did. Because for women like her, the only threat is always another woman. They never expect the man to finally choose himself. By the 9th morning, I was already moving out. Not with boxes or a moving truck. With strategy, precision. I transferred our savings into a separate account. The joint credit cards, frozen. The lease, transferred to her name. Every document with my name on it, revised, redirected, or revoked. No drama, no warnings. Just a quiet extraction, like a shadow pulling out of the light. She noticed things missing that afternoon. A jacket, my gym bag, a photo from the hallway. She didn't ask. Not directly. She just lingered around, hoping I'd open a window into my plans. But this wasn't a negotiation. It was an exit. I booked a month at a quiet apartment downtown. No luxury, just solitude. The kind of place where no one asks questions and silence is sacred. That night, I watched her from the hallway. She was in the living room, scrolling her phone like it held the answer. Maybe she was texting him. Maybe she was scrolling old photos of us, wondering where it turned. It didn't matter. By then, her relevance had already expired. Before going to bed, I left a key on the counter. My last key to that house. To that version of life. She saw it the next morning. I heard the gasp. Faint. Choked. She called my name. Not like a partner. Like a woman realizing she'd misread the clock on a bomb. I didn't respond. Because here's what they don't teach you. People don't cry when they lose you. They cry when they realize you've already left. And I had. Not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, historically. She stood there, barefoot, holding that key like it had weight. But it didn't. It was just metal now. She asked, "Is this it?" I nodded once. That's all she got. No closure. No goodbye speech. No, we'll always have the memories. Because when someone plays with your loyalty, the last gift you give them is silence. She didn't cry right away. She waited until I walked out and closed the door behind me. And even then, the only thing I heard was the click of the lock. A sound I'll remember forever. Not because it marked an ending, but because it proved I never needed to raise my voice. I just needed to leave. 3 months later, she texted me. Just one word. Hi. I didn't answer. 2 weeks after that, a missed call. No voicemail. Then a DM on Instagram. A saved photo of us from 2 years ago. She added a broken heart. I didn't respond to that either. Because by then, I had learned the real secret to freedom. It's not walking away. It's never looking back. I had a new apartment. Spartan, clean, quiet. I woke up early, ran 5 miles, ate real food again. Started reading. Started breathing. At night, I slept without wondering who she was texting. One Saturday, I passed by our old grocery store. The one she used to complain about because the lighting made her look tired. She always made everything about her reflection, never about the life we were building. That day I saw her, alone, in the same aisle where we used to argue over cereal brands. She didn't see me, and I didn't stop. Because what would I say? Hey, remember when you burned our future for a cheap thrill? Remember when I gave you loyalty and you traded it for attention? She didn't deserve a moment of my time. Instead, I left and went straight to the boxing gym. I'd picked it up 2 months ago. Nothing flashy, just sweat and silence. Coach says I hit like I've got something to prove. He doesn't know the half of it. One night, a friend of hers messaged me. She's not doing well, she wrote. She cries a lot. She misses you. I read the message twice, then deleted it. Because grief is not my currency anymore. I don't know her understanding. I don't know her closure. She had both, and broke them. This is where the story ends. Not with revenge. Not with a speech. But with peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing I never have to wonder again. She wanted a reaction. She got a lesson. Some men don't yell. Some men don't hit back. Some men just disappear and become untouchable. And in that silence, she'll hear everything she tried to ignore. Forever. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.